The smartboard cut out. Apologies. Back to number 3. So again, if I look at this, my x's don't cancel out, my y's don't cancel out. But all I need to do, if this guy's positive 3, this bottom one needs to be negative 3. Or you could make this top one negative 3 and the bottom one positive 3. It doesn't matter. You know how to manipulate equations now. Do what you want. So I am going to keep this top one, the original, and I'm going to multiply this bottom one by a negative. So I'm going to multiply, and I get a negative 3x, a negative times a negative is a positive 9y, and a negative times a 15 is a negative 15. But notice how everything's lined up. My x's, my y's, my equal sign, and my constant terms. Now, my x's cancel out to give me 0. And I combine like terms. Negative y equals negative 1. You can't have a negative, so we flip it, and we flip it, and I get y is equal to 1. So now how do I solve for x? You go back to any one of your equations that you want. You plug in y for 1. I'm going to take my top one. I'm going to plug in 1 for y, because that's what I said. I said my y value is 1. And I'm going to solve. 3x minus 10 equals 14. So I add 10 to both sides. And I get 3x equals 24. When I divide both sides by 3, I get x equals 8. I'm not done. I need to check my answer. So I'm going to take my original equations, 3x minus 10y equals 14. I'm going to write the second equation, 3x minus 9y equals 15. And I'm going to plug in my values just to make sure those equations are true. If x is 8 and if y is 1, does it make this equation a true statement? Let's find out. Plug in 8 for x, plug in 1 for y, 24 minus 10 equals 14, 14 equals 14. That's a true statement. So if x were 8 and y were 1, this statement is true. Now let's do it again over here. If I plug in 8 for x and if I plug in 1 for y, does it make this equation true? Let's find out. 3 times 8 minus 9 times 1 equals 15. 24 minus 9. 24 minus 9 is 15. 15 equals 15. That checks out. Therefore, this has to be the right answer. Okay? So it doesn't take too terribly long to check your answer. Let's flip over to the next page. Let me change my color here. All right, and let's look at 7 and 8. All right, so if you look at 7, my x's don't cancel out, my y's cancel out. That's awesome. It means I don't have to do anything. I don't have to rewrite my equations. What am I doing? They don't cancel out. My y's cancel out. And I get 4x equals 28. Divide both sides by 4. X equals 7. Now, to solve for y, I can use either equation, and I'm just going to plug in 7 for x into my original. So 7 minus y equals 10. Subtract 7 on both sides. Negative y equals 3. Y then equals negative 3. Take the time to check your answer. So, how do I check my answer? I rewrite my originals. X minus y equals 10. 3x plus y equals 18. So this question is asking, if x is 7 and if y is negative 3, does it make this equation true? 7 plus 3 equals 10. 10 equals 10. Yes, it makes it true. Now I'm going to do it over here. If I plug in 7 for x and negative 3 for y, does it make this equation true? 21 minus 3 equals 18. 18 equals 18. Yes, it checks out. Therefore, 7 and negative 3 are the answers. Right. Look at number 8. Notice my variables are not lined up. That is key. I want my variables to line up. So I'm going to move this 3y to the other side. Remember how we move it. Additive inverse. I'm going to subtract 3y to both sides. So x minus 3y equals 11. Now, my second equation, 2x minus 3y equals 16. Now my equations are lined up. My x's don't cancel out, my y's don't cancel out, so I need to force them to cancel out. How do you do it? Well, it's up to you. I'm going to keep my original equation, and I'm going to multiply my bottom equation by a negative. So what happens is I keep my original. Here, I'm going to multiply by a negative. Now my y's cancel out, and I get negative x equals negative 5. X then equals 5. So to solve for y, you take your original equations, either one. I'm going to take this one, and I plug in 5 for x, and I solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 11 on both sides. Negative 6 equals 3y. Divide by 3. Y equals negative 2. Check your answer. So, again, how do you check your answer? You take your original equations and you're testing. If x is 5 and y is negative true, does it make these equations true? So, if x is negative 2, no. If x is 5 and y is negative 2, does it make this equation true? Yes. Negative 6 plus 11 is 5. That equation's true. Let's try it again over here. If x is 5 and y is negative 2, does it make this equation true? 10 plus 6 equals 16. 16 equals 16. Yes, it makes it true. Okay? All right, last one that we're going to do together is I want you to jump down to number 10. So, my x's don't cancel out, my y's don't cancel out, so, it did it again. All right, hold please.